Alrighty.
Here we are.
All right, what's up, everybody? It's the Wrecking Hour. Got my man Adam Hoobry on right now. Goes by Hoobs Glass, for those of you naive and don't know that. Not to be condescending. Respect. But the mastermind behind the Molten Art Classic, what you see behind us, is year 2020's piece, of which I was also happy and honored to be a part of, along with a bunch of other artists. Yeah, I put some hours in on this one, which felt good because in the past, Hoobs has been very generous and kind of like allowed me to participate with very low effort, maybe just show up with something. Alrighty, but having said that, thought it would be cool to give some of the history and get to know Hoobs, introduce to you all the backstory behind the mastermind and up till today. And so, yeah, let's just get to it. And forgive me, I'm stumbling a little bit here, but we're having a good time.
Yeah, man.
So first off, why don't you tell me what year you started blowing glass, and what was, one of the things I always like to find out from people is who were some of the artists you were aware of and inspired by that were already involved in glass, and what circumstance got you into it? Were you an apprentice, or did you buy equipment, or what?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I started pretty much like right out of high school. I graduated in 2000 and stumbled upon it within like about 12 months of that time, kind of just like figuring out, life and things,
Yeah.
But somehow I luckily like found a place that allowed me to try this. And for me, it was interesting, because I never had thought about pursuing that type of career path, or like, being an artist as like a legitimate like career path, is really not something that I ever thought about. But at the same time, I was someone who was like kind of just like looking for something outside of like the normal, path that was like being put in front of everyone, at least in like the school system I came up with. It was like, you pick your career. It's like, what do you want to get into? Medical field, technology field, this, and then you go for your degree and whatnot. And it was just like, that didn't really seem like anything that was very like fun,
Right,
like,
yeah.
It seemed like there was a lot of security in the sense of like knowing where you were going to go if you took that path, but it wasn't very like
at that young age, that security, quote unquote, in which it is, it felt to me very much like shackles. It felt like it was inhibiting my freedom. So I can totally relate to where you would have been feeling.
Yeah, for me personally, like the biggest issue I had always with like any sort of part-time job even was just the fact that like they were telling me you have to be here at this time on this day or else, and it was like even at 16 or 17, like that
without
really
a doubt,
happening.
man. Yeah, I over the years jumped once in a while, would dabble in something else to supplement the income or whatever, and without a doubt, the thing that always stuck out in my mind was the ownership over your time being such a valuable part of being a glass artist, self-employed glass artist, or whatever you want to say. It's something that's really, really, really hard to ever give up again once you've known what it's like to just be on your own rhythm.
For sure, yeah.
You can't always be in the mood to be 100% just because you're scheduled to be that way at a certain time. And so even the other night, I found myself, it was like 11, 12, whatever at night, and I was having that thought of I might as well go home. And then I'm like, but I'm really in a zone right now where I'm like firing on all cylinders, and I ended up staying until 6:30 in the morning just because I was like, why stop this? Now, granted, the next day I wasn't very productive, but I was in the right headspace to be able to be creative and productive when I was.
And like, you're motivated to do that because it's for you, where like if you're doing that for someone else, like you're not going to want to do that,
Yeah. The current culture in America doesn't seem to be like we're all in this together when you get a job. Like they'll say that to get you to work harder if they can, but the reward in many cases is definitely doesn't feel like it's equally shared and whatever. That's that is.
Yeah,
the
I
way it
mean,
is.
unfortunately, we've seen, time and time again of like corporations that just leave their employees hanging. So,
Yeah.
now people have seen that more and more. I think definitely moving forward, especially with like all the tools we have available now, that like I definitely think there's going to be, I think definitely like in the generations now, like they're more focused on like being entrepreneurs and like building their own self thing. Because
Definitely.
it's like, they have these tools you can buy and sell things and market
And
from your house now, and like,
yeah, and technology has changed the marketplace and what retail even is, so that old like mantra of get a degree, get hired by a reliable company, work your way up the company. Those paths that like seem to be there for long enough to convince people that was it, those aren't really even that evident anymore. And new ones are springing up all the time. People figuring out how to use various social media platforms to create revenue for themselves that just wasn't happening that long ago. And these people sometimes are not even 20 years old yet, and so I think young people have seen, hey, our parents' way of doing things seemed to stress them the fuck out and leave them in a position where they're kind of pissed and angry. So rather than end up that way, we'll just be pissed and angry right now and just do our own thing. And then, maybe they're not even pissed.
I think it was just a different time for our parents, Obviously,
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah.
when our parents were our age, they, you're talking about like the 50s, 60s, 70s is like the whole economy of America was different,
Yep.
and it was actually like really good for them to go that career path and like
For
get
sure.
into technology, because at that time that's when all like they were at the our parents were at the boom of like the internet and all that. So obviously that's what you're going to be a part of.
Yeah.
It's
Even
like,
technology now, I'd say, is a good idea, but it seems like a lot of them are making their own businesses or apps and whatnot.
yeah, I mean there's still a lot of opportunity for sure, but working for a company I think was just way different back then than now.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so like going back to
So then you
me,
decided.
After high school, I was just kind of like in between, like figuring out what I want to do. Honestly, like there was a couple like moments that I can like look back on that I was like, yeah, this really was like a changing like direction in my life, and that was like, basically, I was two things. Like I had been a baseball player my whole life, and that was like one thing that I looked forward to, after high school, and that came to abrupt end at like my senior year, just for like decisions I had made and other things, and I ended up losing that, and it was kind of crazy because at the time I was really into it, and the high school that I went to was like a hardcore like baseball school, It was like, looking back at it, I didn't know how to describe it at the time, but then they came out with that movie like Varsity Blues, and I was like, we had a coach kind of like that on our varsity team, he'd been there for 20 years and he was like hardcore about winning, but it was like serious, where like when I was a freshman, like my senior year, like 4 players on our high school team got drafted into the majors, like right out of high school.
And they were seniors?
And they were
Damn,
as they graduated.
Yes,
they went
yeah,
straight
gotcha,
to the
yeah,
majors,
yeah. Yeah, that's
and
no
even
joke.
there was more
that's
players.
A pretty
that
high
happened,
amount of people for
it
one
was
school.
pretty crazy, yeah. Like, and we were, they were winning championships, and even my senior year, our team went to like the high school championship, played at Dodger Stadium. They ended up losing, but it was like that was something for me that like I saw as like my future as a kid versus anything else. And when that ended, I was kind of like lost in a sense. I was like, was I gonna still go through this like college path, because it wasn't really like my whole drive for going to college was to play ball,
Right.
So, and if I wasn't going to do that, what was I going to do? So luckily, I just had like weird side jobs, and my parents at the time were still like forcing me to like stay in school and stuff, so I had signed up for like community college and was starting that, the following year after high school. And basically like I had went to my first day of community college, and then that night I remember a friend of mine was about to go off to the Navy, a good friend of high school, and like we were partying, whatever. Anyways, like I went to like go on a beer run with him. I hadn't really been drinking, but like we ended up getting pulled over on the way home, dude. And it was like this whole ordeal where I wasn't 21. I blew like a .02 type of thing, and this cop just totally tried to rail me, and like basically write me like a DWI and like possession of all this stuff, and like I ended up fighting that whole case and like getting off because it was like he had no probable cause for the stop. But in the long story short, I ended up dropping out of college because of that, because the DMV suspended my license even though I had beat the case.
Right.
The only way I was going to get my license back is if I paid a lawyer $5,000 to sue the DM or take the DMV to court.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, are you serious? Like, I won my court case,
Yeah.
and I was like pleading to the judge. I was like, so you guys are going to suspend my license so I can no longer go to college? All right, sweet. Like, what am I going to do now?
And what do they think they're accomplishing by even throwing the book at somebody with such a minor infraction?
It was, dude, when I was in the,
It's like,
when I was in
congratulations,
court,
you derailed my school.
when I was in the court, like everybody else waiting for the course was like, man, this is so fucked up, because they got the police officer on the on stand, like completely lying about the whole thing, because this motherfucker
Dog shit
just
human.
totally fucked me over, Yeah, he had like the breathalyzer in my mouth before I was even out of my car,
Yeah.
Never gave me any type of field tests or anything, and he was like getting promoted, he's talking about all this shit, and then like I basically had to tell my public defender, like, this isn't a violation, and like, so their prosecutor went in the back for like 45 minutes. I remember it came out and they were like, well, we can't do anything, So I was like, fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I was like, put a mark on this motherfucker's
And like, yo,
record.
you put me in jail for however long, if it was just an evening, and like I dealt with that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know you, Mr. Prosecutor. Have you ever gone to jail? Like, you act like whatever. Has it happened to you? Have you had strange people strip you naked and take your picture?
Yeah.
And like, you know what I'm saying? It's a fucking humiliating experience that shouldn't just be considered like blasé, because that's just what they're part of,
So yeah, I mean, so here I am, I'm like, dude, I was trying to go to college, trying to fucking take the right path, and like do that, and then here now I am stuck, my parents are pissed, like everyone's fucking pissed, and like,
and they're all trying to dump it on you, and like, how is that going to manifest you into the citizen they want you to be?
Yeah.
Like, you just tried to paint me out to be a massive fuck up criminal because I'm a normal person in this society.
So I mean, honestly, like that, like those two things right there were huge moments that I look back on. That especially, like, because that really like changed my whole path. I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to college, so I got 2 fucking part-time jobs, and then like one of them, I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna work at a head shop because that's fun, Like I was like, I'm gonna have fun if I'm gonna work some shitty job, So yeah, I got a job at a head shop that some of my friends from school already worked at, and like that's where it all started for me. Like I just randomly there was like glass blowing at this head shop, and talked the guy into it.
Would that be where you may have first started seeing some name artists or anything like that? I
mean,
like,
dude, I had no clue about like the glass scene at the time. Like my only exposure to the pipe world at the time was through like the couple of like heady head shops we had in Southern California. Like downtown LA had like Galaxy Galleries. That like I would go into as in high school and be like, damn, like this is some crazy, there was like fully worked reversal tubes that were like this tall, just like you're like, dude, you never seen anything.
I went to their
like
420
$2,000 piece,
I remember they had a whipping 420 party in the year 2000.
Yeah, and that, I mean, I don't remember seeing any names or any names standing out in that shop, but I remember Chronic Creations in Venice is where I started seeing like Marcel, Jason Lee, like this guy had the collection.
He
that
definitely
was
early supporter.
Fucking, I don't even know if any other collection existed in the country at that time, Like
He
I can't imagine
was certainly
it.
a
Like,
heavyweight.
He had all the big shit. He had the original Deppy, like space scene, and so I saw all that like coming out of high school, as we were just like buying our little bongs and bubblers and like naming them and stuff, and like that was all I knew, And then I get a job at the shop, start blowing glass, and just kind of just in my own world for like almost like 5 years, I would say. Like I worked at that store for almost 3 years, and I mean that whole thing was very interesting too, because I had, the owner of the shop was kind of an asshole, and I wasn't getting paid anything. Like he had basically agreed to pay me $5 an hour to make pipes and bowls for his shop for a year. And then he would move me up to $8 an hour. And then like year 3, it was like I was gonna get 12, but it was like now he was like being a real dick about paying me, And I was like, all right, dude. But so yeah, I was like, did that, and I ended up quit. I remember I quit after my first 6 months there because it was like, I was like, this guy doesn't really know how to blow glass. Like, he kind of talked about some things, but I'm not really learning much. And I was like, fuck, 6 months. Let's go try like another part-time job, you know?
You got your feet wet, you got the ball rolling,
I
you
got
saw
to the
what was
point-
possible.
I basically just struggled for 6 months, and I was like on the cusp, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if I could have stuck another 6 months through, I would have like got something down where I've been like, okay, I got a little bit, but like, I was like, man, I'm not getting anywhere, and I just quit, and he let me quit, and I went and like delivered pizzas for like 6 months, and like, man, this is even shittier than blowing glass for $5 an hour, you know? And I was like, fuck it. I came back to glass blowing.
At least with glass, you were building a skill.
Yeah, so I came back to glass blowing, and I was like, fuck it. Like, there, you know, all these other part-time jobs ain't shit. Like, I'm gonna like really try this, you know, and like not quit, you know? Because the other good lesson I learned is from quitting baseball, you know, it was like, dude, like, you know, I felt like I had potential to become good or great at something, you know, but like I realized that like you can't quit if you want to get
That's
there.
sort of the bottom line,
know?
right? The secret of success
Like,
is don't give
yeah,
up,
you
believe in
you
yourself.
just can't quit, dude, you know? So I was like, I made a point to just like not quit when I came back, you know, and fucking after about 6 months, I was like moving up and I was making these 2-piece bubblers and shit, you know? So we were moving along, you know? And then after the third year approach, and I was like, fuck, I got a little bit better. I felt like I could almost do this on my own in a way, you know, if I could afford to buy the equipment that I needed, which I didn't have money for. So I was like, fuck, I was ready to leave again just because it was so shitty. I wasn't making any, I was like, I need to make money, you know? Like, my parents are like, make money and, you know, it'll be better, you know?
Right.
Like, so,
It
and I
helps.
gotta like get out of my parents' house,
Right.
basically, you know? So to pursue this full time because they really want me to go to school. So I basically left that shop and was on the verge of quitting, and a homie that I had at the time who was a big weed dealer had cash on hand and was like super into my work and how you know, like I'd got him a couple pieces already, and he was like, dude, I'll fucking front you like $5,000 or whatever to get your own shit, you know? And that basically got me on my own independent path, you know?
And
that
so
was
with that $5,000, did you like buy a torch and a kiln and like?
I bought a torch and I bought a Carlisle and like an AIM kiln, you know, which I still have the kiln.
Yeah.
I still work out of it this day, dude. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so that really like that moment, you know, pushed me to do that. And then I was like, fuck, all right, I got to pay this guy back. So I worked for it, you know?
Right.
And then just like never really looked back, dude. And just the scene just evolved and evolved, you know? But we get more into that like in a little bit, I think.
Yeah. So like where I remember, like I said, I think when I first saw you, became aware of your work, and you was at Champs, and I'm pretty sure it was a big old praying mantis. Is that right that you made?
Yeah. So that was years.
Oh yeah, that would have
years
been more
down the
like
road,
2011, 2000.
I mean, because I would say the first like time I found out about the scene was actually like kind of Operation Pipe Dreams happened, you know?
Yeah,
and
that was 2001.
Yeah, I was just starting my like second year of glass blowing, you know, and like didn't really like affect me at all because I was just doing things within this little shop, you know. Right. So I wasn't like selling my work.
And just real quick, Operation Pipe Dreams was when the Ashcroft Justice Department raided a bunch of stores, and Tommy Chong went to jail, and a whole bunch of wholesalers.
A whole bunch of people did, for selling pipes online.
Jerome Baker, 101 North.
It was pretty shitty, you know. Yeah. I know a lot of people that at the time that were like there, you know, I'm part of that.
The guys they arrested, they had established themselves and were, by all means, could be considered successes. I mean, they were paying taxes. They were making 6, if not 7 figures. They were paying people better than average. Yeah. And and the government didn't like it.
Yeah. So that happened, and that kind of like made me realize like, oh wow, there's this like whole world, you know. And then also like at the shop, I remember we would get like these distributor catalogs from like 101 North and
the Crush maybe.
Yep. And then you would see like the cover page. They would have like Darby, Clinton, fucking Marcel. You know. So that's when I first started seeing those names. And then I was like, oh damn, who are these guys? You know. And then the owner would tell me, oh yeah, these are the guys crushing. You know, like these guys get paid. I'm like, damn, dude, that would be nice to make that kind of money.
Yeah.
I'm over here making $5 an hour.
Right,
But then I'm looking at their shit like, how the fuck do they do this? You know, like I
still
couldn't
sometimes feel that
figure
way.
it out. You know, yeah. I mean, they were like just crushing out crazy.
Yeah, Clinton, without a doubt, was
shit,
ahead of the game with, and you know, and he did start like 5 or 10 years before a lot of people.
Yeah,
But that 420 show that I went to at Galaxy, they used one of his Phoenixes for like their poster, and then there was a Darby and whatever,
Yeah.
and like that was maybe now, like you said, Deppy's piece was over at Crowny Creations, but.
So so like kind of like once I saw those names and I got out of that store and I was independent, I was like, I kind of started like searching for those guys, you know, and like trying to find out more about them. And like I think some of them had websites at the time. I just remember like I think the only place at the time was like the Eugene Glass School was like doing Boro classes.
They were very, very, very sensitive about the pipe issue because Saeed, who had been part owner of Jerome Baker, had his house raided. Guns to his head, lost arguably hundreds of thousands of dollars, and he was the main benefactor of the Eugene Glass School. So they did not want the police raiding that place at all.
So
you could come learn all you want, but you can't put a bowl on anything.
But like they had Jason Lee teaching there, you know.
Yeah.
And like I remember that was my first thing I ever did like in the scene. Is I drove up there. I can't even remember what year it was. It was probably like. Man, it was probably like 2004 even, like probably like my first year like on my own.
Yeah.
I drove up there and took a class with him, and he was just doing basically like, he wasn't shaping a pipe, he just showed like his prep technique of how he pulled his cane and did a wig wag,
that makes sense. He is a great teacher.
And dude, I credit him like at the time, like dude, that guy was giving
his
so much.
Passion for glass and for the pipe industry is unparalleled, and he loves sharing his knowledge.
Yeah, I think he really loved like teaching, and you know, I think there was, I don't know, I think maybe after all of it, like he kind of like had some mixed feelings because people were just directly copying him. You know, which kind of sucks.
That's sort of the double-edged sword of teaching.
Like,
you have to expect that to happen initially, and a lot of people will go from there and make up their own voice. But if you're going to get paid for your knowledge, you're sort of sanctioning the people in that class at least
so early on
to
in
use those skills,
in the craft,
those techniques.
I think too, like you know, like being shown that was the technique that like everyone I think wanted to get to, you know. It's like that was the pinnacle of pipe making at the moment.
I was there when he came up with that.
You weren't making like you were at the pinnacle if you were doing these sick fucking montage and combo fucking multi-section pieces. You know?
Which he more or less, I wouldn't say he came up with that style, but I would say he popularized it in a short time.
For sure, yeah.
You know, he and Ease. I credit those two with the, what do we call it, tube cane, the initial like striping color on a cane and putting clear over it and then making multiple reversals and stacking it. I was working with those guys when I feel like Ease had a leg up in the beginning of trying, like he German montaged orange and blue, reversed it, built a piece, and then Jason saw that and just he's like, why German montage when you can stripe on glass and then you can go red to yellow and then yellow to blue and then blue to green and then green, black to yellow and have all these things. Oh man, he just ran with it. And people were like, holy shit, he just leveled up the entire game. And,
for sure,
and that for certain influenced a lot of people, everyone's work at the time.
I mean, I think that just like grew the interest in glass for sure. You know, it's like when you look at like the history of like soft glass and like when like soft glass was like, there were some certain Italian artists who like fucking revolutionized the glass again, you know. And it's like Jason Lee definitely did that for.
And one of the things that coincided with that really well was Glass Alchemy. Give a shout out to them. That was right when they came out with those Crayola colors, not too long after that. So the combination of the color palette of a sudden expanding into a really,
and him using them,
and then Jason really coming up with that really inspired everybody, and grew the game and grew the color palette. It was a beautiful thing. Helped legitimize pipers in the world of quote unquote real glass blowers.
Yeah,
And,
so, you know, so Jason, was a huge influence on me early on, and he kind of like was the first one that was like giving out this information, not giving it out, but like showing people, you know, and, you know, that really like changed my whole, that was the first time I'd ever seen anyone who really was like a professional flame worker do it, you know, like up until that point, I'd never seen anyone blow glass except myself and the guy who owned the head shop, who wasn't a glass blower.
Right. No shit. Wow. You were literally taught by someone that barely knew what they were doing in the beginning.
Yeah. You know, and then
he's like, here's how you turn on the torch, now figure it out.
And he's like, oh yeah, by the way, I made this perfect bubbler.
Right, sure you did.
You know? I was like, all right, dude, like, and I was just trying to figure shit out, you know? So I was like caveman style, like fucking doing these 2-piece bubblers, like not understanding that if you welded shit correctly, it could like cool down a little bit, you know? So I was just like ferociously keeping these things hot, you know, and like looking at these guys' work, like making these huge bubblers. I'm like, how did they keep this hot, you know? And really they didn't. They just like blew glass like better, you know, like smarter.
It's, you know, those little lessons and epiphanies happen along the way.
I don't know how they figured it out, you know, because they figured it out. Like,
for me, it was Banjo. Banjo was the first person that I was aware of where somebody, probably Slinger was actually the one that told me. He went probably when he was shooting for Degenerate Art and they were making some work, and he's like, man, he's just sitting it on the bench and letting it cool.
Yeah.
And then working on the section that, you know, or like working on the section he needs to work on, and it's cooling otherwise. And yeah, Banjo is just like, if you're making it well, then
I remember
up until certain points you can get away with that.
I don't remember, might have been like 2007 when he did the DFO, maybe 6 or 7-ish, maybe 8. One of those early it was like the second or third DFO. It was Banjo. I remember Darby, Buck, all of them were in it, you know, but that was when Banjo, I remember it was raining outside, fucking wind and rain blowing in the roll-up door, and he was right on the bench on the corner, and he finished his piece the second day, and then he just put it on the carbon plate and let it bench cool. Everybody else's shit was still on the kiln, and his was like done, cooled next to the rain, you know? And I was just like, holy shit, like this guy just like, everything that everyone thought was like impossible, you know?
I had been raised with the fear of letting things cool down, for sure. To this day, I still get anxiety, even though now it's watching other people, whatever this. But
totally.
But that's a great lesson to learn, without a doubt.
Seeing things like, seeing things like that.
And once in person. Another one that I thought was good, real quick, without diverting too much, was salt. You know, when salt came out, and it was like, wait, you can put cuts and creases in the glass,
some
you know?
of his work was like,
that's not supposed to be cool
too,
you know?
I remember, I remember the thing that he made for the Smoked Volume 1, or was it Volume 2?
I don't know the piece he did, but he did one for each.
It was one of his biggest pieces, I think, at the time, this sculpture. It might have said salt, like,
right, and now, of course, he did make a piece that said salt, but now I'm like, was that 1 or 2? I can't remember.
It was the same one when Zach had done the race of the hot rods.
That's number 1.
Okay, so it was the first one then, and you guys did the release in Hollywood.
Yep.
That's where, I saw that salt piece, and I was like, what the fuck?
That Zach piece too, man. I didn't even know who that guy was, and that book came out, and all of a sudden I'm like, boom! This, of course, is much bigger, but you could almost say that those pieces were the precursor to something like here, you know?
Zach did it first, for sure, like in that kind of rap, finky, like crazy style, like. I mean, all that shit was just next level.
Philly came hard. They announced their presence in the glass world very definitively between the talent and the desire to move the industry forward with all the stuff Jag did. Got to give him shout outs. Smoke Volume 1, Smoke Volume 2, Easy Street Gallery, Just Another Gallery 1 and 2. I mean, the guy's definitely been behind the scenes as much as behind the torch, you know. So respect there, buddy.
Yeah.
All right, so cool, man. We're getting deep into it, and I'm digging it. So then at that point, we're only talking 2004, 2005-ish, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is like I'm just learning about like the scene. You know, I'm finally on my own, independent, working in my garage. You know, I'm starting to reach out and try and sell my shit more, like outwardly. You know, to shops, and right at that same moment is when I found out about Champs. like in Vegas. Like actually because like the shop owner that I'd been working with at the time before I left, you know, he had been like, because I was there like doing all this glass work, he was trying to create his own glass business around that. So he had gone out to Champs like I think the year right before I left, you know, he had gone, I didn't go. But he went out and he took one of our workers. So our worker came back and came to me, he was like, dude, I met like so many dope people. Met this dude fucking Fat Jack out in Vegas who was like driving around the country selling pipes. I was like, fuck yeah, dude. Like, he's like, yeah, dude, I told him about your shit. You got to go meet him.
Great dude.
So I drove out there, like 2005-ish, you know, same time when I was just like trying to get out there and take some classes, and like met Fat Jack, and he's like, boom, sick, dude. Here's like 5 G's, like give me all your glass and go get me more, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, that like,
Respect to those cats out there.
yeah, I mean, that set me off, you know? That really like gave me the motivation to like go for it full time, and gave me the money to like start building up, you know?
Well, you know, throughout the years, artists have often relied on benefactors to really allow the masterpieces in the end to come to fruition. I mean, some of the most timeless pieces of art happen because a king or a queen or aristocrat of some kind, of some sort, made it happen.
Yeah.
You know, it can't all be.
People have to buy your shit.
Yeah,
you
people
know?
have to buy your shit, and so it's the valuable part of the artistic evolution that people with money once in a while decide they either take a risk or not even give a fuck, just to throw a bunch of money behind it because they know they can make a positive impact. So then once you got out there to so you met Jack and then at Champs, or you just?
I didn't meet him at Champs. No, I just drove out to Vegas just to meet him and give him like the first like drop of my work, you know. And then I think what happened is he invited me for the next Champs to come out, you know, and come out during Champs, bring him some stuff. And so he got me in the show, and that's when the first time I was like, holy shit, like this whole
Champs
world
for
is
me
going
was
on, you know?
Champs and AGE both were pretty mind blowing for me, because I had spent the first 10 years of my, whatever you want to call it, we'll call it a career, but my glass journey up in the Pacific Northwest, and none of the thought process up there was on the industry. It was basically like, we're all artists and we're trying to make heady things, and once in a while ballers roll through and get it and yada yada. So when I came down to Southern California and I'm like, there is a fucking industry, like, holy shit, man.
That's a good point, dude, because like I feel that, I definitely feel that, because like in Southern California it was very production oriented type of work, you know? It's like that was the mind frame, is like you got to create like this line and this you know thing,
a brand and a line, and
exactly. And like the one-off like heady game was like not really like happening down here, you know? Like I knew like the glass blowers I knew were just like with small production stuff, you know? So that was like to finally like go to Champs and like see some of those guys come out, you know? And like it was like Rolling High was the other like dude in Vegas who was
Jason,
basically the opposite of like where Jack was buying all the production and selling it, like Jason was buying all the heady shit and selling it. And that's like, all you had to do was go to Jason's booth at Champs and you saw everybody's like Northwestern, the heady, you know, he had all banjos and all everybody's stuff, dude, which was sick to just see. And that was like super inspiring for me, you know, and allowed me to just like realize like, oh shit, dude, there's all these things going on, you know?
When did a lot of the artists in the Pacific Northwest, you might have known, I think, start going to Champs? Was it because of the flame offs that they started doing? I know they did the Masters flame off and then the team Masters flame off.
Yeah, I mean,
that was kind of a big year for me.
They all came, that was the first year they went to Mandalay Bay.
Yeah.
And that was the first year, really, all the heady guys.
And humbly, I got to admit, that's
the
first year I ever heard of Buck. He won.
Yeah.
And during the Masters, and everyone's like, no, he also just won the DFL.
Yeah.
And that's when he put himself on the map hard and so that's interesting, cool, because when I started going to Champs, that would have been it. And those shows were really cool and really eye-opening. I mean, they brought the artists all over the nation to Vegas. People got loose, as you can expect. The winners made all sick work.
Minus the one that they did at the South Point.
I don't know if I was at that one.
That was the one that was put on at the craft show, the bead show. That flame off. Remember the team one they did? That
Was
the first time
that
I
the international flame
Yeah.
off? I missed that one, but didn't Deppie and Clinton and
Yeah,
Darby make that chandelier?
and Banjo. They
And
were all, it
Banjo?
was Team North Star.
Yeah,
so
Team
it
North
was
Star.
Abe with like Deppie,
The sickest.
Darby, Clinton, and Banjo.
Yo, all I gotta
All
say,
blowing glass.
shout out to Abe. He knows how to come up with a team,
Yeah.
and he has no problem doing that.
That was epic. I mean, that was the first time I seen any of those.
I
guys
wasn't
blow
there
glass,
live for that,
you know?
but that piece is sick. And
Yeah.
shout out Cheese Glass. From what I know, he's the one that owns that.
But that was like, when was that? That was like 2000. Fuck, I can't even remember.
I want to say that it probably was
That
in
was the end of
2009-ish.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't move to Southern California until 2009. I was in San Francisco 2007 first, and so I wouldn't have hit, like, I want to say 2010 maybe was when that Champs was.
When did the Philly guys come to Champs? 'Cause
Well,
that
Slinger,
was a changing-
that was it. I mean, Slinger was Slinger at that Masters contest. He came in third or fourth, I remember, and so I know a bunch of them were there.
Because that's
for
what I
that.
remember. It's like I had come to Champs a couple times, and it was just basically a bunch of production shit, you know, some strippers walking around, and then you had like Jason and Jack had a collection of sick glass, but
Yeah.
there was no independent artists representing themselves there. And then it was like, I think it was like 2008 or 9 that I want to say that the Philly crew was like Hops, Jop,
Yep,
Jag,
they were
and
probably
Zach
yeah.
all came out
I
and
could
had
see
a
that.
booth to get. They were the first ones
Yeah.
to get their own booth.
That was probably
at
2009.
Champs. Yeah.
2008, I remember I lived in San Francisco, and Hops and Elbow, when they were both, you know, just coming up,
Yeah.
rolled through, and I don't think that, just from what I remember, I don't think the Champs was on the game. So I want to say 2009 might have been when they did that. And
Yeah,
I
that
think
was-
2009, 10-ish is when
Smoke.
that Champs happened where Buck won.
Yeah. It was a couple years after that.
Maybe 11 then.
Because by that time there was a lot of artists there representing.
Yeah. Well, that
And
certainly brought
it
it in.
definitely
To their
changed
credit,
it,
to
yeah.
Champs's credit, you know, to Champs's credit, that they, you know, they threw some money down and got some artists involved, and it was pretty cool. And then the follow-up I thought was pretty cool too.
Yeah, the first two trade shows, or the first two flame offs they did were amazing. I thought, you know, it was like really sick. Whoa, shit's going down.
Yeah, you know, to Champs's credit, they've been especially once they got Matty White behind the helm. The flame offs, in my opinion, have been pretty fun. They're not like the super heady contests that they were in those original ones, but they get
Totally.
up and comers and people that haven't gotten as much recognition, the opportunity to get on stage, quote unquote, as well as really anybody. And
Yeah, I mean it's awesome that what they're doing now too, but I also think that like, dude, what the fuck?
somebody's like breaking
Hang on.
up outside. So here's hoping the young lady that just came in here is okay. Tomorrow also.
Domestic violence is at an all-time high.
Right. Well, maybe not all time, but higher than it's been in a while. Oh God, I can only imagine it getting worse with everybody that's on the unemployment benefits taking a $2,400 a month hit all of a sudden. Not all of a sudden. I mean, they know it's coming, but you're gonna feel that one. I do think that had a good impact on the glass game. All the glass blowers, they're like, we've been killing it this whole time. I don't think it hurt that a bunch of unemployed people got $2,400 a month extra for the last 2 or 3 months.
For sure, yeah.
Played a role in that.
I think there's a lot of people that were living a lifestyle that
Better.
didn't require more than $2,000 a month, and now they're getting $4,000, you know? So
And
they're
I
like,
think
fuck
there's,
yeah.
I mean, dude, if anybody that's got a hustle under the table, they just
Yeah.
added almost $3K a month to their
Yeah.
fucking income if they wanted to. And you know what? That's
and
America.
the fact that, like, apparently, yeah, you could be someone who never had a job and never worked, and you could still sign up for it. You know, or not never had a job, never, but like you could have been someone who didn't currently have a job and wasn't working.
To me, better is you can be somebody that has a job but has your flow impact by the COVID.
Yeah.
The idea being people in the gig economy. So if you're like, hey, I was making all this money doing Uber Eats, that's not a good example. As an Uber driver, I was an Uber driver making money. Now I'm only making half as much as I used to. They're like, well, here's $600 a week.
I was thinking about that. I was like, dude, why did, like, if someone was really like gung-ho about it, you know, you sign up for Uber Eats, all right? And then everyone you deliver to, you're like, hey, dude, here's my cell phone. Just hit me up direct, you know, we'll take care of this. And like, you just create a whole network of people you deliver for. And then
I would say that
Uber
probably
Eats anymore,
happens
you
a
know?
little bit, but you might get that one out of whoever that reports. Well, then again, all right, you reported me. Now what? It's not illegal for somebody to call me up and say, I'll give you a little bit of money.
Is that like in the contract?
Some shit, right?
Is that in the Uber, and when you sign up for Uber Eats, they're like, you cannot solicit our customers for your
There
own
might
business.
be, but I mean, there probably is. But all I got to say is, you know what sucks right now, which just pisses me off? Who are the richest people in the world? They're middlemen. Jeff Bezos doesn't own a single store, doesn't make a single product, rich as fuck. Fucking the Uber people don't own any cars, they're rich. I mean, the guys that made the app. The fucking same with Airbnb probably took a hit. But
see, that's
fucking
something
Mark
where I'm like,
Zuckerberg.
dude.
Mark Zuckerberg doesn't own a media company, doesn't report the news, but is the #1 fucking source of like information that's just in America. I don't know about the whole world.
That's
whatever.
why I kind of think, dude, there really needs to be new laws written for the way that businesses can, like, you know, at a certain, like, I don't know, there was, I guess you can say it's always been like this, but we're at a point now where, like, so many businesses are getting so big, you know, it's like, there's got to be a cap or a reflect, like, it does, like, I'm like, you're not going to say, like, okay, we need to tax these people more or whatever, but it's like, there should be a direct, like, there should be a law that forces these, like, Bezos, you just made $6 billion above, like, this already, like, insane amount that you're at, you know? So now it's like
$30 billion.
A certain percentage of that $6 billion has to go directly back to your fucking employees, like well, your employees should be making more money automatically.
Let me explain then. That's why they give them higher tax rates is this. The idea is if we're like, we're going to tax your profits over a certain amount at 90%, then instead of wanting to get taxed at 90%, you're like, I'm giving my employees raises and I'm investing in R&D to grow my company, and those are write-offs.
Yeah.
And then that way I'll keep my profit right under that bracket.
Yeah.
That's the idea of higher tax brackets. That's the rationale, at least, behind it. All right, so we're getting back into it, and I've thought, having talked to some glass blowers and knowing that a lot of people watching this are going to be glass blowers themselves, thought it would be pertinent to figure out what torches you started on, and kind of, it's always fun to hear the little evolution, and then we'll get back to where we were in around 2010 champs-ish time frame. So when you started, I mean, myself, I started on I believe it was a Victor hand torch, and I shared it with Slinger.
Nice. Yeah, I was on one of those nationals.
It might have been a national.
That you could change the tips on, I think I started on like a 12 hole, went up to like the 20 something, you know, and then I think I was just fucking around with like a 27 hole national, and I pretty much worked on that for like 6 months, I remember. And I can say one thing, that the good thing about the place that I started was that they started me at the very bottom like that, you know, like, you know, I think at least the guy that taught me had a good idea of, like, you know, go ahead and like figure out how to use this basicest thing that you can use, you know. And I'm like grateful for that, because I got to experience a lot of different torches. So after that hand torch, I went into the major minor, and that was like, you know, your step the big flame and your little flame now. So
I got the mid-range.
Got onto the major minor, that's when I started trying to do these like 2-piece bubblers, or I remember I was trying to make these like ash catchers at the time because you were still doing that like side seal. So I was trying to figure out that like side seal connection, because at the time all I'd been making were like spoon pipes or like bowls where you're sealing straight on, you know. So I haven't figured out that like 90-degree seal yet. And like I said, I'd never seen anyone, so I didn't know about a bridge or what, you know. Like the guy that talked to me, the guy that taught me was like, I remember him saying things about bridging, and like I'm like, what's that? He's like, you don't need to know about that type of thing, you know. Like he wouldn't like tell me about the bridge, you know, because he wanted me to like figure it out like by hand basically, which I was like, in the end, you know, I was like, fuck, dude, it probably made me better knowing that, like, I learned how to do it.
You need to have a steadier hands to do it that way, for sure.
But I mean, in the end, it's like, it's really not the way to do it or try to do it. But so it was major minor, and then I basically was stuck on that for, I want to say like almost another year. And then by the time I was like, had a solid 2 years on the torch, I moved to the Carlisle, which was basically the torch that I ended up getting when I went on to my own and started blowing glass. It was just a CC plus, and that was it. I worked on that for like another 5 years, and I would say just like for me early on, like the biggest thing is I always wanted to like make sure that I was like progressing a little bit, you know. So after I left the smoke shop, I was able, like, and I met Fat Jack, I was able to kind of like create my own little mini line of production, you know, which thankfully like Jack was down to take whatever I made. So I just kind of like was able to switch that up a little bit, you know, every year and just try new things. And so it allowed me to experiment a little bit. But I remember I always wanted to like, I wanted to master like the goblet basically, you know, at a certain point. And like, I just spent like 6 months just making goblets basically, you know, and tried to like get that down. And then I was like, all right, now I want to try like marble making, and like did that for like 6 months. And then I was just like all over the place, like in the early years, just doing that. And then just doing that, like with my production pipe thing was just kind of paying the bills, you know? And then like, I was like, so I basically, the Carlisle was another 5 years. So I've been blowing glass for 8 years at this point. When I think I switched to the GTT before that, probably like 6 years of glass blowing, I switched to the GTT. And that was after I'd taken a class at Marcel's studio in Oregon. They were doing like once or twice a year. It was like Marcel and Jason Lee.
Right.
And that was like really like the only like kind of heady class besides, I mean, there was like the school that Revere was putting together. And he would have artists come out, I remember.
He had an impressive list of artists. I mean, Deppy to
crazy
like,
shit.
I think maybe even Treasury may have come through there.
Yeah, so like it was like right around 5 or 6 years that I took that class, and that's when I switched over to GTT after that class. I was like, fuck, I can't do this anymore with the Carlisle, because they were doing this, like that Marcel basically showed us the big Dicro flat cane fucking shit he was doing, and I was just like, well, I can't do this on my torch, you know? So I got the Delta just specifically to do that big prep, really.
It'll do it.
And like that class actually also like introduced me to like, there was actually a lot of people in that class that blew glass around me that I didn't realize, like Boom Falaise was in that class, Trevor Selby was in that class, Saki was in that class. There was a couple other glass
in
blowers.
Southern California.
Dude, it was really
Dale.
It was like, well, Dale
was already working there, right? He's probably the TA.
Dale and Carlson were
like the
were
TAs
working for those guys at the time. So Carlson, was like working with Marcel, and Dale was working with Jason. So they were both there actually. So that was like really cool to see like down the years, you know. But meeting like Trevor really and Saki was like, okay, now these guys are like into the scene, you know, that I didn't really know about, and they kind of like pushed me to like find out about like glasspipes.org at that time, and like see everyone else out there, you know. So I like up until that moment, like I hadn't even known about glasspipes.org or any of that. So it was cool to kind of like be like, oh shit, wow, this is crazy. You know?
Saki was my. She's the person that found me a place to work down here in Southern California first. When I was in San Francisco and wanted to move down, I don't know what the forum was at that time. It probably was Toke City, to be honest with you. But I'm like trying to go to Southern California, and she's the one that convinced me to work in her studio.
Yeah, because you guys were all like these super fucking.
I was
artists,
the man,
you know?
dude. I was in the movie.
In High Times.
Yeah.
2005.
I squandered a lot of opportunity, and yet at the same time still living and loving life.
But that was before the movie, for sure. You know.
Oh, that was before the movie.
Before
You're right. Yeah.
Right when you moved down here, even it was before.
The movie. I can't remember exactly when the movie came out, but I moved down here first, and I mean, there was the glass pipe top 100 that I was usually in the top 20 of, and so that was maintaining my status.
Yeah.
I learned the value of the internet. I mean, of course, now it's like life, but like there was a time when I got off the torch for almost 2 years. I made like 2 or 3 things, but I was on that top 100, and when I came back, it was like I was just as strong as ever because a nice piece I made was one of the earlier featured pieces when they didn't do that a lot, so it kept popping me up, and it was like, I was like, man, you can literally dip out and come back, and people didn't even know necessarily you were gone because this website's just like maintaining your presence,
Yeah, it was interesting when I found out about glasspipes.org. That's when I was like really into goblet making at the time. Actually, like I had gotten to a point where I'd gotten like pretty good at them, and then there was glass pipes, and then there was also glass artists or artists or something, and
glass
then
artists.
So I made an account on both, and I started posting my pipe stuff on that, and then my goblet stuff on the glass artists. But I got up to like the top 100 on the glass artist page, which I was like, fuck yeah, dude, So that was like my little thing in that era. But it's I always felt like there was already like this like. You guys had already like established like this era.
Yeah, we kind of. I credit a lot of those guys from Slinger to Jack or whoever, even though, I mean, shit, like Smiley and Bear Claw and shit, all of that era, just making crazy stuff. And, but
and
for
dude,
sure.
just like changing the scene immensely, with what you guys were doing and like how much you guys pushed it, like, it is set up for everything in the future. And then I always felt like I was like after you guys, like, even though like some of you were like close to my age, but it was like you guys were already like so built up.
And there was a little bit of that Pacific Northwest cliquey-ness going on. Like, for sure, the Philly guys ultimately were creeping in.
They had a crew, it seemed like, and then like the North, these guys, like, I definitely felt like there were these crews of like hardcore heady dudes, and I was like always just kind of like by myself in SoCal, like there wasn't really like a bunch of dudes like trying to push it hard, heady.
The internet
like that,
really did make this. I mean, Toke City and everything, people started like talking to each other across the country,
Like I didn't even like anybody in I knew glassblowers in San Diego, but never knew a fucking Rhino or like back in those days, anyways, like I didn't know any of it. Like there was no connection for any of us, so it was like, I always just like felt like, damn, I was just looking out, like seeing all these things. And then I remember like I was starting to make like, once I made the shoe, that was like around 2010, my first like glass shoe. That was like, I'd been blowing glass for almost 10 years, and like that was the first time that I think I got the attention of like you guys.
I think for sure that like while it was Champs where I first saw the praying mantis you made, and that was impressive, the shoe was the thing that said Hoobs, that said I'm not just here doing cool glass like I've seen other people do. When it's like I'm making my own mark, and I'm not trying to say that the praying mantis or whatever wasn't.
No, for sure.
But at the time, to me, I was like, oh, okay, this rod built shit, this is hitting the scene, whatever. But the shoe for sure, it really. I think also it just like hit a nerve with the cultural current at this time, also, and to this day, that to me, I really felt like that was you making a statement for sure.
Definitely, yeah. And that was a piece that like I had in my head for years, and like tried to, just I don't even remember why, like what happened, but I just remember like at one point I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna try this, and like spent like weeks on it and like didn't really know if I was going to even be able to make it. And then when I made it, I was like,
it's pretty cool.
just like, yeah, you're just like, damn, okay, what else is possible
Now, yeah, this
now,
is just
you
where
know?
we, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I remember that was really like, I feel like that was kind of when I first started to get noticed a little bit in the scene by some of you bigger like names, you know, and then and then it was like, then at that moment was like the Flame Offs had been happening, I think right around then, and it was like you guys were crushing it, and then it was like 2012, 13, that's when like Elbow and Coil and Joe P like entered the scene.
Revolutionized.
And I thought it was like this
they were
new
in the scene,
era.
but they changed the game.
It was new era guys who, once again, like changed the whole scene, you know, and like, so I was like, here's these guys, and I was like in the middle of everything, but you know, because I don't think like that my timing in it, like we didn't really like, there weren't, I don't know, like people that were like like we were kind of just like watching this shit happen, you know, and trying, like I was trying to like get my skills up to your guys' level in the same time while like trying to like create some of my own shit, you know, and then here come like these guys who are like, fuck it, we got this whole other like outlook on it, you know,
not only
more
a new aesthetic, but just
like just way more like a different approach to the pipe world that we hadn't seen yet, you know. Definitely more like educated, artistic vision, I think, of the way you market yourself. Like, and no one to that moment, I don't think, had been focusing so much on like
fine art, maybe.
Fine art, like, I mean, I can't say a style, but like sculpturally wise, like, no one had been doing like one sculpture over and over and over.
No, sculpture in general was, like you said, it was a limited amount of people that were even capable of it, and they were doing one-offs. Like Clinton would do a sculpture of something, or
and he never
Bear
even
Claw.
had
Bear Claw was doing some faces, tribal faces, but they were all a little bit different.
Definitely.
Same with Smiley.
Hang on. Shouldn't be a bad one, hopefully.
Around 2000 and I don't know, 11, 12, when Coil came through, was making monies. I did a couple collabs with him, and he was like, I want to move past the money. I talked to Coil just recently about this, and that's when I was seeing, that's when you see Elbow come in, start making the dynos, and Coil switching over to Gorillas. It wouldn't be too long before like Rhino would start making duckies, and people and the sculpting aspect of the community really stepping its game in, and not just showing that sculpture was an option, that we aren't that it's not just line work and reversals in pipe shapes, but also that the sculptural shape can be a unique canvas for collabing with, you know, like the
Definitely,
shoe as for yourself. It's like a.
I mean, I think that was like, that was Coil's whole concept with the money, was he was creating this canvas for people, and like I always credit Coil for this. Is like, in my opinion, like he's the most important person for this decade of like influencing collaborations, you know, because he did it to a point and level that no one had done before. You know, he collabed with I don't know how many artists on the money, and made that whole statement of like, I can create this.
And not only did he do that, but for an older person like myself, Cat in the game, those two pieces probably sold for more than anything I'd sold anything for up until that point. So not only was it like, hey, check out this whole like this sculptural thing we can collab on.
That the concept
we can sell them for more than you guys have been selling your shit for, and you've been breaking your back, putting hours and hours and hours into these things, and then getting not the same amount of reward that ultimately people are willing to pay for.
Yeah, I mean, it's the benefit of like, just utilizing your.
I mean, I think Elbow really is the one that deserves credit, if you want to put it that way, for showing artists they could get paid more. I mean, he saw collectors resell his work for twice that he sold it for, and thought, why aren't I getting that money?
Totally.
Especially because it was like, it wasn't like these people were buying it and sitting on it for years and then getting like something worth their investment. It was overnight, you know.
Totally.
And so they showed it could be done. And it's funny because some of the old cats got upset even.
Yeah.
You know, I won't name names there, no reason to get drama, but like some people, I remember saying, there's no pipe that will ever be made that's worth $20,000 or $30,000, you know, and clearly we can add a zero to the end of that at this point.
Totally.
And those pipes have been made, and they've been worth it. And while I think what also happened to coincide, not with just those talented individuals getting into the game, but the gradual decriminalization / legalization of cannabis was occurring. So we'd had our medical, and that's around the time when Colorado, it wouldn't be too long where Colorado would go legal with their recreational, and a flood of money would come into that state that couldn't go into banks. That praise Jah, a lot of those people decided to reinvest into glass, and
Definitely.
and it brought. I mean, there's no doubt about it that the Everdream crew was able to level up massively because of that. Their skill set and their drive and their intelligence and their creativity was already there, and then they got the money behind them so that they could just they didn't need to like they could just fund their imagination, you know.
They believed, you know, and they definitely believed in something that had not been done yet, you know. And it's like you said, well, there were like some guys who have been in the game for a while and were like, this is not ever going to be possible, or didn't believe, you know, it could be, or whatever. Is like, why not fucking try it, you know, and see what happens. And it's like you said, it's not like we're getting paid too much now, you know. It's like we definitely weren't getting paid anything back then,
right?
And now we're getting paid just enough to where like we don't have to just like scrape by.
When your standard of living, when you're comparing it at a certain point to basically low 20-somethings, where you're like, dude, I just want to be able to pay my rent and my bills, and then eat food and smoke weed. We were crushing that, you know. We were crushing that. But when you talk about people trying to build equity, pay taxes, raise a family, buy a home, and all that stuff, then we weren't anywhere near that category. You know? Home ownership was like, what? Maybe we have parents that'll die, and they have houses.
The only people who were making that kind of money were the people who were building these like companies, you know, and like utilizing the glassblowers who work for not much. And then, you know, organizing it all together, and you're making money, but it's like those are the only characters who were at the point in life, you know, where no other artist.
I wonder if we'll see that again, you know, as more and more glassblowers come in on the lower level and develop a certain amount of skills. I mean, with national legalization and money behind it, another 101 North or some kind of company could come in and just say, listen, there's a lot of you that don't want to waste your time. I don't want to say that. Don't want to spend your time building a brand, and even though actually young people love doing that, that's the whole social media aspect, and they're all about it more than EOS. But just say, hey, I'll hire, you know, a few dozen of you just to crank out these products in America, high end, and pay you, you know, hopefully.
I mean, even if like, you know, if imagine in another 20 years, like weed is just like worldwide legal,
seems inevitable,
seen as like just cigarette, whatever.
I mean, compared to the last 20 years, it seems inevitable.
You know, that opens up us, like that creates I mean, we already have a huge international market growing, but like you're gonna see, if you start seeing that in huge countries, you know, like these other countries, and like they're, you know, it's just gonna be
and
huge,
honestly,
you know, global,
if more and more people
business.
do want to blow glass, then those of us that have 20 plus years in the industry will, you know, get a lot more recognition from it. It's kind of like in my own little world, where how like tons of the punk bands that I love from the 80s that like, you know, kept it real and made me feel like I was keeping it real. They're only getting paid now, well, up until COVID, you know, now, because all the fans back then are all adults now, and they can like actually sell merch and do stuff and like, you know, tour again and actually sell out way bigger venues than they ever played before, you know, and I think maybe we might experience a similar thing like that. You know, I don't know if it's a TV show or a reality series. I think we talk about doing a series of educational sort of films, or educational, that makes it sound boring. Glass
Definitely the
film,
right videos about the culture have a huge impact. You can
Massive.
see like just what we have from like Slinger.
Yeah.
That expanded the scene like to a global,
Huge,
international like thing where like everyone's seeing the benefits of that. Now, and it's like if more things like that could be done, it's just going to benefit.
I think of that movie Free Solo with Alex Honnold. That's paid for, I believe, by Patagonia. What's gonna keep cannabis companies from blowing up and deciding, hey, you know what, let's throw some money behind this culture that was sprung out of cannabis in America. I mean, yes, it's glass, but it was the desire to get high. Totally. I think that actually superseded the desire to blow glass. And of course they came together. But I think you can't take the bowl off the piece and have it mean the same thing anymore. I mean, of course, if this wonderful piece here was non-functional, it would be equally impressive. But the fact that then you can take a rip out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's extra cool.
I mean, not only that, but it's just like, at this point, it's a representation of why this even exists, It's like, this piece wouldn't exist if like glass pipes
and cannabis and the whole thing,
like
the weird way the laws have worked out and everything have played a role in it. And that's why there's a bunch of weed leaves on there to, respect.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually the first piece in the few years that we had any type of weed reference on, and we've always like hidden the bowls just because it just comes back to that thing where people are gonna turn away from it because there's a weed leaf on it.
Some
people, and it just sucks, at this point, like certain.
Those numbers are there. The number of those people is shrinking, and their age is growing.
The funny thing is, when I go to like these. I submitted these pieces to a big art show in Southern California last year, and when I brought it there, all the people, all the like security people working, they're like, "All right, dude, where's the bowl at? Where's that? So they all know.
And let me tell you, that is something that I've wrestled with a little bit. As things got more expensive or whatever, there is a part of me that just doesn't necessarily want to make things just for privileged people. But the fact that this obviously is not something the average person could afford, but the average person is going to appreciate it and be like, where's the bowl? I mean, the fact that there's that connection to me with everybody out there. And maybe that's what the cannabis is part of, I personally, I think that the reason why I have never shied away from, and I'm pretty proud of that, the fact that it's for weed and pipes and everything. I mean, from the beginning, there was always a lot of one day I'm going to be a real artist and not make pipes, and I was man. And I think it's a pretty big deal to play a role in people's ceremonial, altered conscious experiences. I mean, it's important for the evolution of the human's soul, as a collective entity, to have those spiritual experiences, and those are aided, I think, by smoking weed and stuff, and especially in a society that's so caught up in the rat race. Psychedelic experiences, transcendental experiences, I think, are crucial to us. As far as I know, your average stoner is contemplating things on a deeper level than your average non-stoner. Yeah, it's a big generalization. Maybe that's just me, but I do think that it's it levels the playing field. It slows people down, and I don't mean slow them down intellectually. I mean, what's the rush? Savor the moment,
Totally.
And so I think that it's kind of. There's been times when I've heard people say, "Man, I haven't even smoked weed in a while, but I want to hit that pipe," and it's I don't think I'm being a bad influence. Yeah, hit the pipe.
Yeah.
If you don't, in the end, come away from that experience with something you want to repeat, then just don't. But at the same time. If it was unpleasant, then ask yourself what you can take away from that too, because everything's a learning experience, right? All right, so then at that point, now we were talking about torches, and then we got deep.
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, I think once I got onto the GTT, that definitely like changed it for I think it was like a recalibration of like everything. It was like relearn because like from the Carlisle to the GTT, I think it's a big difference.
Is it safe to say GTT was? This might be a stupid statement, but was almost like made for pipers. I mean, those guys came out of Bethlehem, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I think
like Jason Lee had
sure.
like one of the very first torches.
Yeah.
It just seemed like they gave it to him. They
Yeah.
were just like, we want to get these in your guys' hands. So they saw. Shout out to Willie and Wally, because they saw when other people wanted to like, the Gas Art Society, and they've evolved. It's all good, but at the time they wanted to pretend we weren't there. Willie and Wally are like, we're going to build an entire business
around
you, and they, at this point, it's like industry standard. I mean, it's not mandatory. People use a variety of torches, but I would say if I was to recommend, you got a couple thousand you can spend on a torch. I would highly recommend the Mirage. And you still got a few.
I used to always think it was like the Carlisle was an inferior torch, but after watching Rocco for years, I'm like,
the Carlisle is
badass,
the so now I'll backtrack and say the Carlisle is the workhorse. It's the one for Boro in general that's been the most reliable torch. It's been there with Bob Snodgrass up to like Dosher, literally had a GTT, went back to his Carlisle. You see,
I think for beginners it's the great, like I don't think you should.
And it's not even, it's like what, $1,000?
I think they're a little
$1,200 now, maybe.
I think like 15 something.
All right, well they've come up, but I don't think it's a bad choice. I don't think anybody getting a CC or especially a CC Plus will ever regret getting that.
It's definitely a good starter torch, even if you're just beginning. Like I didn't get onto it till I'd been blowing glass for a couple of years.
I've used them a little bit, so I'm a little bit inexperienced, but I used one for a few weeks in Humboldt a long time ago.
I don't know. I think
it's got that premix, which is good for fuming and good for doing thin line work.
Yeah.
The center fire.
People start on GTTs and they get them down and they get good on them, but I always think there's a lack of like flame control with a lot of.
It's a little bit more. It's like American car racing versus European car racing. American car racing is go from here in a straight line to there as fast as you can, and Europeans are like, no, we're going around tracks and stuff. You got to be able to brake and skid.
Someone told me something at one point, like early on. I can't remember who, but it was like, everything in glass should be easy, right? Like if you're doing it correctly, it should be easy, So I always like took that philosophy as like, all right, like once I started watching real glass blowers work, I realized I was doing so much that I didn't have to do to accomplish it, you know? So I was like trying to figure out what is the minimum that you physically have to do to accomplish it, And like, to me, that's like the mastery is like, if you can physically do the least amount of strain and make it happen, then you're the master, But if someone's over here doing the same thing, but like straining themselves, it's like they haven't fully like mastered it,
for sure.
And I don't know, like that, I think
work smarter, not harder.
Working on different torches in the beginning of your time on a torch is like super impactful, and like learning these different flame environments and figuring out what you really need to accomplish things, is like I think that's a big reason why like I was able to get to such a level at this point, is like you have to have that like really like strong foundation of like trying stuff,
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Different work environments, even just like, I think it was just last year, I got asked to blow glass out in a Joshua Tree at like one of those cannabis themed moonlight
outside,
dinners. And I turned out to be outside and I didn't even have power. And so I had no lights except the full moon, and then I had no kiln, so I had a bucket of vermiculite. And I realized, I was a little bit, I made some simple spoons or something because I was comfortable with that and to accommodate the moment. As far as the cannabis theme, but I came to realize later, like maybe not the moonlight, but just getting comfortable blowing glass and annealing things in vermiculite, even if later on that it needs maybe a more complete annealing. It teaches a bad habit maybe I would have is like step, garage. You
Yeah.
know, step garage, and it just gets you in the habit of like you say, working less steps. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Just make it happen quicker and
Yeah,
concise. Because all those times in the garage, in a weird way, you're doing something with your brain every time you garage. Like it,
Yeah.
you know. Now maybe you're pulling something else out and you're like meh, 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 in the
Yeah.
groove. But maybe you might just be saying, I want to quit, or I want to break, or I
Yeah.
want to break, and it's so much of life is mind over matter, so much of glass is mind over matter, and getting your
Or
mind
fear,
in the right.
just the fear of it breaking, you know.
That-
so
yeah.
you're not gonna even like.
You know how much
let it
how
get to
much of that how much oh man, I so wonder how often can my vibe put a bad juju on this. You know what I'm saying?
Totally, dude. Yeah. I mean, I remember it was like the big thing was like you can't photo it till it's done. You know, if you take a picture
dude,
of it while you're
don't
making
tell
it.
somebody a price until it's
Yeah,
fucking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Finished. Don't start trying to sell something until you know it's well done,
Yeah.
beyond done.
That's when, and that's, you know, that just goes back to the era when like people were just like, you didn't even know if you're gonna finish this thing, you know? Like,
Yeah.
So many like factors can come into play, but now, yeah, people
Yeah.
are much better, you know? Like,
What do we call it? The potential for oh man, I'm spaced now, but just basically critical loss.
yeah, I mean, just
it
like the amount of
grows
time
the closer
being,
you get to
yeah,
finishing
and
the piece.
amount of time being put into pieces now, you know, it's like, fuck, some of these pieces are just like, you know, you don't want to imagine like anything going wrong
No.
with it, dude. It's like,
It is
You know?
such a
and at this point, yeah, shit
kick in the balls when
has
that
to be
happens.
flawless, you know, for a lot of the top, you know, the people at the top, like we have to make flawless.
right. As much
work,
as
you
the
know?
glass blowing side of it has evolved and gotten a lot more mature and knows what it's doing, the collectors, they know a lot more what they're looking for. You know, I don't want to say they know how to look at the glass the way we do, because there's still things that they'll like really think are a big deal that in my mind are like
Yeah.
a something else that's not as big a deal, but that doesn't matter.
I think, yeah, just in general though, like the average, I think the average non-glass blower but glass like collector enthusiast definitely has a better
way better.
understanding of what a good piece of glass should be.
And
looking
on
like,
top
you
of it,
know?
how they want it to hit. You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
they don't want it just to hit. They want diffusion and
Oh yeah, totally.
and
I
who
mean,
knows,
there's-
maybe recycling and.
I mean, there's a lot that goes into like a really good hitting pipe. You know, it's
Yeah.
not something that people can just like. It's, you know, it's there's science behind it at this point. You know, a lot of like scientific like technique has been brought into the pipe world. You know, and now the standard of like a well smoking pipe
Right.
is very like
Very
scientific
different.
and very high. You know, it's like people obviously like we still have your standard, you know, little
Yeah.
one piece, but for the most part, yeah, it's even on some of these big pieces, you know, we put
I think
like,
we
recyclers
could
and shit in
probably
them.
give Mothership the credit for raising the standards of production functional.
Totally.
You know, they came out with new designs for functionality that
Yeah.
weren't commonly being used. Mainly the Taurus, the Klein, and the Fab Egg, and I think shout out to basically Scott Deppy and Quave. I believe they came up with those designs.
Yeah, I mean, just yeah, it's. I think Deppy just like it's insane to see that like even just like the people that got around him, you know,
Oh sure, he's a
what
talent.
they
man.
became. You
Yeah.
know, it's like there's not really like you can't even compare that to like there's, you know, you have like Jason and Marcel, but it's like Scott just like churned out these amazing
Scott
like,
had
artists. you
Scott
know?
had a different Scott had a different like willpower as far,
Yeah.
and I mean, how do I say it? He was determined to manifest something far beyond just being a good glass blower,
Totally.
and he did it. You know, he said, "I'm going to make the ultimate bond company," and that's an oversimplification at this point of what he's done, and continues to do. You know, I think that what they're doing right now, as far as graphic design, incorporating that into glass, and then incorporating
yeah.
that into
I mean, it's just him
production,
still-
and by that I just mean it's not production. I mean, it's high end.
He's
but
still pushing technique, you know, which is insane. It's like, how much innovation, you know, it's crazy.
I met Scott, I think it was in 98, and it was when he first got into Marcel's studio. I don't know if he was an apprentice or if he was renting space or a little bit of both. And honestly, Marcel offered me the 100 bench space there, and instead I was making a bunch of money as a weed dealer. So
Damn.
I passed on that one and went on to have more of my weed dealing adventures.
What year was that?
98, probably. And so I would always come back up to Bellingham, because that's where my house technically was, even though I was cruising all over the country. And I just saw Scott go from, like, he already had skills, but, you know, everybody goes through that progression of, like we were mentioning earlier with Jason's classmates or students, that you imitate the person that you're learning under, you know. So it's not uncommon. You get into a studio and there's a really good glass blower, and they let you watch him blow glass, and you start picking up techniques, and next thing you know, your work looks kind of like theirs, if you're lucky, if you're getting that good. And Scott's like earliest pieces are like multiple dolphins and fucking seaweed dichro, fucking all cobalt coil potted, like blinging out the ass, and the only other people you'd seen do that is Clinton and Marcel, but he's now working with Marcel. And so it's like, it's funny because he went through that same phase, but it was high-end, heady as fuck shit. That was kind of his looks like whatever. And then from that, he jumped over to the Grateful Dead, like rainbow, everything theme. But even early on, he was succeeding in etching dichro. Before I ever saw anybody etch dichro, he did that. And a couple other things that I think actually disc flips. I'm sorry.
He had no fear, man. You know. Like
I mean, dude, his those little dragon spoon pipes he made were some of the earliest sculptural. They looked amazing. You know, his disc flips basically they weren't cut and flips, were they sock flips or whatever? But basically the Celtic knot work, and he was ahead of the curve for sure. And then he was sculpting skulls and stuff like that were really cool.
He definitely do it all, you know. I would like to see him like push into some sculptural stuff.
Yeah,
more,
he's gotten in the last many years so that he's like a company owner, and it's more about what the company can produce. And he probably, like a lot of glass blowers, gets a little bit like, you want to come back at the peak of where you were. And it's like martial arts, you know what I'm saying? You're either, if you're running a company, you're not necessarily training as hard, and there's a physical component, like in muscle memory and everything, that plays a big role in it. But his mind is still going, and his business is still like always industry leader, you know.
And I think, dude, in the future, like, dude, being someone like him, that if he can facilitate the correct people and build a team that can make his vision come true, like that's what your biggest name artists ultimately do. That's probably what Banksy is doing. Yeah. So I mean, that's
at least to a degree. I mean, he's hands-on too, so that's just it, you know.
I definitely, you know.
And if you can save your energy for all the creative and most complex construction parts, and allow a little bit more of the grindy kind of prep work stuff be done by the team, then it keeps you fresh.
Yeah, you see the like 80-year-old Italian dudes still doing it. They just come in for that last little.
You know? But their energy is in there, and more importantly, their name is on the piece, right?
And
everyone's
that's like the most important move.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
It's
Yeah,
like,
it is. Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to fuck that one up, dude. After the team just spent all day.
Right.
For sure.
So then I would say this is when. Let's go back now to when you and Hops got a studio and first formed Cobra Kai, and I believe that's when you all maybe informally made what would inspire future Molten Art Classics. And that, from what I remember, it was a much smaller vehicle. It was.
We made that first one in your guys' studio, actually.
Yeah, right on.
You guys were still there because, I can't remember how we actually met at first, but I remember Hops found out that I was like down the street or something and invited me over, or maybe I just came over because you were there. I think that's what happened. Is I came over because you were there, and then Hops was like, "Oh, you were right down the street?" Yeah, like, and we just talked. That was the first time I'd met Hops, and I was like, "Damn, like, this guy's fucking character," you know. And he was awesome, you know, super positive, like, dude, like make you feel good,
Yeah.
and like, yeah, he just wanted to get down on a project on like a sick car, and he had already made these crazy ass like motorcycles, and
Right.
like I said, like I had already been following his work for years, and I was like, damn, you know who I am, like he was like part of the Philly crew, it was like already crushing, so I was like honored that like he wanted to work with me, and then we made that sick ass car, and then like it wasn't too long after that we like got a shop together, and fucking that was like history, man. Like that really changed my life, is like really I just think of it as like that's the first time that I worked with anyone, that was like really as dedicated to the glass as I was, and really like pushing for like making art and stuff, but beyond the production, even though he was locked into his like whole production
Right.
thing, too, which was funny because at the time, like my whole career, in Southern California was always like production oriented type of stuff, and like I'd been fighting so hard to get like out of that, and like making the shoe and those first pieces was like finally, you know, and then when I met Hops, it was like he's doing all the production again, and he wasn't making the heady shit anymore, and I was like, oh fuck, like I think I got him back into the heady a little bit, and same, like he got me kind of back into the production a little bit.
I remember him specifically telling me that you were a special talent. That was his words.
Word. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I was definitely making some crazy shit when I first, like, I was definitely having some like revelations in my own shit, where I was like really like, all right, like now I'm like just kind of like at a point where I feel like I've mastered it pretty good, and now I'm just like, let's see what's possible, and I would just like, I would work hard, I'd crush out for like a couple weeks, I'd get my production done, and then spend a couple weeks just make one crazy piece, and like maybe I would sell it, maybe I wouldn't, and just kind of bounce around like that,
I found that even if you don't sell those big crazy pieces in the world of social media, in the end, it's important to flex your muscles and put it out there that you got that skill, and everything sells eventually, right? I mean, it just might take a few years.
I don't know. I feel like it just like legitimizes you as like a professional. You know, it's like if you're just here part time, how do you expect someone to like fully like support you? It's like. How do you expect someone to give you thousands of dollars for your work if you're just like not fully committed? It's like
people want to feel, even if it's a little bit of willful ignorance, that they're making an investment. It might just be a way to make themselves feel comfortable initially making a high-end purchase. And in many cases, they are making an investment if they're willing to.
I think it is, for sure, with the right artists, like. Obviously, like,
well, for sure, with the right artists,
like you can buy pieces or you can collect works, and then like if the artist doesn't have a following that continues, then it's hard to get your value out of it. But it's like, did you buy that piece for the value of it, or did you buy it for your own personal, like, did it speak to you?
Exactly.
And it's like, I don't know. As myself as an artist, like I don't buy pieces that I'm buying just for the value of it, like ever. Like I would only buy a piece that I want to keep, and like, unless I fall in hard times, would I ever consider like even wanting to sell it, But it's like, I think there's a huge like market now, and I think it's because it's not just in the glass world, you see it in any clothing, sneakers, collectible baseball card, like everything is like that's collectible is like coming back because it's so easy for people to buy and sell now as an individual, and like I think that has a huge role in like why people want to buy glass and sell it, and like and feel like they can do that as just like an individual person with no business or retail kind of store of any means is like. And the fact that people are willing to buy pieces that have been used now, it's like, it is looked at as an art, and it's more of than just this object, it's not just, I'm buying a used pipe from this guy. It's like, you're buying this piece of art that was made at this one time by this one guy, and it's like,
I wonder if it matters to collectors if they've been used or not. They probably, you still see people advertise, never been used. And
I think there are people who don't smoke out of their pieces at all, and that's definitely
in the era of dabbing, cleaning pieces is relatively easy.
Yeah, I think as long as you have good etiquette.
It's almost like the thing you need to worry about is don't use
tap water or
Tap
anything
water,
like that.
yeah,
You need distilled, filtered water. You need to keep it clean, and there's ways that you can use a piece and make it look brand new even after years of use.
Yeah.
So if that's done, I don't think the value should
I think
have
even
to
the
drop
right
at all,
acid might get certain.
But
runoff.
obviously, if there are like watermarks or things like that left on a piece, then yeah, the value of it is going to be, it's like anything else, it's like got some wear on it, you know? But if you kept your baseball card in mint condition, it's like the value is there,
Yeah. I think, and you and I have talked about this before, that probably one thing that will help the glass industry is continued documentation, right? So this is part of the motivation on these podcasts is to,
for sure,
and there's other podcasts out there also that talk about glass, but just to help get a little bit of awareness or whatever. But that leads us back to the Molten Art Classic. It seems like everything we've been talking about kind of led up to this project that now, this was year number 6, was it?
This was 6.
Yes. Yeah. Where basically you've kind of had a loose open invitation to a bunch of the local artists, but then over the years expanded that to a select group of guys that and women that you've really clicked with artistically to come together. It's been every year, I think, in June, culminating on the July 4th.
Yeah,
day.
I mean, I think the first 2 years we had a different date, and then we changed it, and we might actually change it for next year now, just to accommodate.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
I think I support that. As cool as July 4th
yeah,
is, it's a hectic
yeah,
day.
it gets a little tough for everyone with families and stuff. But no, yeah, I mean, the Molten Art, that's like, it's turned into that, which is like, it's turned into like a thing now, which is amazing, because when we started, it wasn't anything that we thought of like that. Like, it was just really like, I credit Hops, because like, he's the one who really like made it happen with Carlos. And this was before I was really like tight with Los, like that tight with him, like we did business together and we knew each other, but like we hadn't like really like linked up like that. But like him and Hops had a great relationship,
Right.
and like that's just Hops. Like he'll fucking,
Yeah, he's
very
outgoing.
like, yeah, he'll become a friend with anyone, really.
Right, yeah.
Not anyone, but like, what I'm saying.
Yeah. He loves having a barbecue and inviting everybody over. And
so anyways, like it was their thing, like, and Hops, invited me, and he had like a couple other guys that he invited, and he just really wanted to like get together and fucking throw down on a sick piece together, and it was like, that was his idea, and I was like, I was all about it. Everyone was all about it, so it was like a great time, and it was just very like, we weren't like, all right, this is like an event and like, we're going to do all this, it's just like, let's just like we're just getting together and we're going to make something cool, and Carlos is here, he's going to pay us for it too,
right.
dude. So I was like, all right, fuck yeah.
Yeah, he bought those first few pieces.
He bought the first 3,
Yeah.
and like, it's amazing because the second one we had fucking like 18 people, and he paid everybody out like a piece of
decent.
that. And like, it's,
I think I got 5 bills on that one, and I'm pretty sure I stuck a marble on it.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't much, but it's like, fuck.
For the marble, I was more than happy.
Yeah,
and I was stoked to be a part of a rad piece. You know? So it was a win. There's no doubt about it.
And that was the 3rd year. That was kind of like the turning point of it, where I
wouldn't have even sold that marble for $500.
See?
Yeah, I mean, just to be straight up.
I like it. But yeah, I mean, that was like, so the first 2 years were really just us getting together for like 3 days and like throwing down on a piece, and that was it. And the 3rd year was like, it was starting to evolve. It was like I had taken over this space that we're in now. That was the pirate ship.
The pirate ship was the 3rd year. What's
so
the bus?
was the second
year?
Yeah, it was tow truck, the bus, and then the pirate ship, which was where the first year where I like had Hops fly out like 2 weeks early, so we could like start this frame, this giant frame, and then once everyone got here, this frame would be done, and then we just like arted out.
And that was smart of you, man. That was smart of you to have the foresight to see like, there's a lot that's going to need to get done in order for everybody else not to be like in each other's way.
I was just like,
which is still what happens.
It basically became that from the previous year, because it was basically like Hops would put me in charge of the framework, like because at the time Hops was the leader, or like, he still is the leader, but he was like the one, all right, like, let's figure out who's gonna do what, you know, and like, he was like, Hoobs, I'm gonna make the motor, you're gonna do the framework. And I was like, all right, well, now we're gonna make this huge bus. I'm like, I have like 24 hours, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, it didn't, like, it was hard. That was a hard one because what happened was everyone was making their sculptures at the same time I was making the frame, you know?
So in the end, fitting everything
yeah, it
gets
was
tricky.
like fitting, and it was very tricky, you know, because no one really knew what the scale was. So this year I was like, all right, we're gonna try to go bigger than we went, you know, and like I want this frame to be
Was
like
that the
done.
space station?
No, this was the pirate ship.
Pirate ship,
you know,
so
it was
yeah,
the first
yeah.
one. We started 2 weeks early on that. It was just me and him, and we just were like making the frame, and it was still like I think we had only invited about 10 or 12 people at that time for that one, but it ended up getting to 18 with everyone around, you know. But yeah, that one was like, that was one where we figured out something that was like, oh shit, like we could really like push it, you know, because it was really like, okay, me and Hop spent 2 weeks doing this frame, but then everyone came together for 3 days again and turned it into this, you know, and it was like, well, what if we spend more time, you know, like, and I was just like,
sure.
all right. So then the fourth year was like the space station, and that's when we turned it into like a real event, you know,
yeah.
like you know, we really were
Molten
like,
Art
all right,
Classic.
yeah, like we're gonna set it up for spectators, we're gonna live stream it, we're gonna invite fucking the most artists we've ever invited. You know, I tried to get, because we were going space theme, I wanted all the space guys.
Right,
so I was like, I'm still super like proud of that. I got like all those, I got Sagan, Joel X, Nate, and Gateson all on that project, you know, which was like super special to like have
Considering
them be a part
Sagan
of
even
the
ended up
space.
taking like a year off from blowing glass not too long after that.
That was
so.
yeah, that was really his first event that he came out to
Yeah.
in like a year, and like fucking he went hard on
he
it,
did.
you know, and it was like it was so
that guy
awesome.
I got a lot of respect for him. I feel like
He was
always
there,
had an
dude,
honest
till like
approach.
fucking the sun came up with us
Yeah.
every night, you know, and like that was really like that project. We started after we met for one of the trade shows in Vegas in like January or February. Hops and Rocco came to my studio, and we designed that whole piece on paper in February, and then literally I started prep on it in like April. Like I started pulling cane, and like me and like Trevor basically just fucking prepped for like almost like I worked on like for like 6 weeks, I think 6 to 8 weeks, I think was like just me and Trevor like getting this shit ready for these guys who were coming in for 2 weeks now versus 3 days, you know. And then everyone came in for 2 weeks, and it was just like we had 16 torches in the studio, and that was like probably like one of the funnest like times ever, you know, just creating that piece, and like everyone's working so hard and it's so hot, but like, you know, your adrenaline's just running, and like that is like, that just like really like, I don't know, that was like a huge moment for me, you know, and like I'm sure everyone that was a part of it, you know, it's just like it really like got you going again, you know, because I feel like maybe, you know, we're getting to the point where it's like, all right, we're getting to these like 20-year marks, you know, and it's like once you do things for so long, it's hard to stay motivated, you know, especially when we're by ourselves for the most part, you know. So I think getting us together, you know, like gets us motivated.
You know, also what
again.
I think was great about the Molten Art Classic in general is there had been flame offs and things like that, and then ultimately you do see like the Michigan Glass Project turning it into collaborations, but it was great to sort of more like capture the true spirit of being a piper, which is there's a little bit of competition as far as like everyone's, you know, you like to think you're making the sickest piece in the shop or whatever, but for the most part it had really turned into more about collaboration than competition. And so this is just like the ultimate representation of collaboration and sort of evolution of the industry to get to a point where you have 10, 20 artists come together and showcase a little bit of their personality, not just like, it's not always just a matter of just doing grunt work, you know what I mean? Get a little bit of their personality in there
I
also.
mean, I mean, leading, like coming into like this, probably the last 2 years were the first times where we were really like, all right, let's like really try to focus in on something a little different. But previous, it was like, like the idea was to let everyone have their voice, and like, you know, something that's really special about the space station is like, we drew like me and Hops and Rocco drew out the like the structure, you know, and came up with that as just like us three. But then like the rest of it is just like that's everyone, you know, like putting their own little piece to it and like trying to make sure that it's like cohesive.
I would
you know?
say that piece has a lot of whimsy going on in it, but that's a good thing. Just like you can stare at it forever trying to see what little thing is happening in what little crevice, you know, who hit a little figure doing something like, inside here and there. And,
it's cool because for us, we look back on it and those are like, that it just reminds you of the moment, you know, of like everyone being there and you see everyone that was there, you know, which is like super cool.
I think the fact that the pieces are made in the event format also adds that extra level of ritual / special quality, because big pieces like this could certainly be made casually over the course of many months with in the mail or whatever.
For sure,
but having those all-nighters, and it's not just the artists. I mean, you'll have the diehard collectors that paid for the VIP or whatever that have decided, yo man, they're there till sunrise too on those days.
We've had definitely
and more than one. I mean, there'll be as many of them as there are artists. I mean, and it really isn't a shocker because that's their commitment, their love of the.
Totally.
And what a great opportunity if you're someone that loves to collect glass to be able to share that experience with the artist. Like when the piece comes out, and you know. Critical failure is always that. Who knows what could happen? Shit, there was an earthquake a few days ago. What would have happened if that was going on? It was just one quick shake, but who the fuck knows? You know what I mean? Like, and so for the fans that get to be intimately involved, I mean, let's just face it, we're all sessioning, whatever, eating food together.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like, dude, we definitely treat it like a family. You know, everyone who's here is like, you know, that was the thing. Is like when we tried to turn it into an event, like. With the space station and make it like a real event, we were like, all right, we gotta like do all this, make a real event, and you're gonna have like, we gotta have our artists area for the artists, and we gotta have like our area for like the VIP guys. But then in the end, it's like
it's too much shit to try and oversee.
It's just like and like you don't want to like,
yeah, you can't be here.
No, yeah, well that's one thing. No one here is enforcing it, but also it's like everyone is like part of the family, you know. So it's like it doesn't really matter. Like it seems
to me the only boundaries that need to be set is this is where the work is happening, and we need to make sure that no one's in this space for your safety, for our safety, and for the security of the piece, you know?
Yeah.
But beyond that,
we figured it
VIP
out, you know?
areas, and when it's already kind of a VIP event,
we just
I could understand that.
VIP, you know?
Everyone's a VIP.
Really,
we're all
everyone's
VIP,
dude.
you know?
That's the basic sense of it, you know.
And we all carry it forward. It's as much as the artists have to have a bunch of drive and skill, the collectors are throwing the wind in the sails just the same, you know. It's hard. The sponsors, Carlos plays a massive role in these pieces.
I mean, we had a lot of sponsors to make the space station happen, you know, because that was a lot of people to bring out, a lot of color. North Star, actually, Abe gave us 100 pounds of color for that, so. Fucking shout out to
North Star.
Always supports, you know, like. So that's fucking awesome.
Abe the homie.
These are actually all the.
He taught me how to do an implosion marble.
Well, at least we got all the timber, right? That's North Star.
So then, all right. So all these years later, we've come to the point now where this was year 2020's piece. Is there a title for this piece?
Not officially yet.
I know there's often a name pops up eventually. So.
By the time we make the book, we'll have it. So.
Yeah. But things to look forward to in the future is, sounds like you got a book coming up. There's a book for the shipwreck piece.
Yeah, we just released the book for the shipwreck, which you can get through Ziggy's. And we did a book for the space station, which we're going to reprint soon. So we'll have that, which is cool to just see. Like, we put the whole process down in there. And you get to see us all working on it. There's a bunch of cool finished pictures and a little thing on every artist that's part of the project. Yeah. So that's cool. And I mean, you know, that's really kind of just where my focus is going for the future of this project, you know, and like what we've been talking about and like even doing this is like we need more documentation, you know, and more like coverage of what we're doing. So I think the one big thing that we're missing from this project is really being able to show it to the world, because right now it's just kind of like who can be here for the moment.
I think,
you know?
the trick is, or not the trick, but probably the vision would be try to create a documentary of which we've been talking about that is able to give almost that VIP experience, like the person that was here all night,
Totally.
watching us make the work. And I think that makes perfect sense. I mean, there's people doing amazing things, whether it's snowboarding down the side of a mountain no one's ever been up, or surfing the biggest wave, or whatever it is. And it isn't until that documentation is able to present it, not only just make it available to the public, but make it compelling and consumable, that you see
widely appreciaed for even like people who don't
for
snowboard,
sure.
you know.
That's exactly like for me, I haven't snowboarded in a decade, and I had an injury, but that's no excuse at this point. But I still love watching the videos. I get a little bit of the stoke watching people snowboard, surf, kiteboard, wingsuit. All those activities to me are something that get me really stoked, and it definitely made me think about what we're doing once I saw the climbing movies and got into those, because it's not as much of an adrenaline junkie. There's a zen, a meditation. And I realized that step by step till you get to the top, handhold, crevasse, weird maneuver till they get to the top of the mountain, in many ways mirrored what I see happening with a large construction piece. It all has to be mapped out. There's a little bit of freestyle that can happen, but the more advanced you get, the more.
It, I think with technology and like the GoPros and shit, and the views that you can get with those people now, is like you could actually have that guy's vision now as he climbs that mountain, which is like brings you to a level that like you never like could feel before, So, and I think that's a hurdle that like is still yet to be jumped for as far as like showcasing like flame working, because it's very hard to film that interestingly.
Yeah, and that's once more why I kind of like the climbing comparison, because it's something that's slow and tedious, and so you need to be able to, how do you tell the story? Tell the convey the risk and the energy, but keep it moving. And so that's something that I think is a great idea as far as future Molten Art Classics, is to as far as the planning goes, maybe make the event, or let Carlos handle the event, and then have just a part of the planning involve the documentation, so that the shots, like you said, it's not just like allowing a cameraman in the room, but trying to figure out to get the best shots, and making all the artists involved understand that that's part of the process that year. And of course, once everyone is always like, oh, this cameraman's in the way, until the movie gets made, and then everyone's like, I'm in a movie. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's
it's challenging for sure. And just like trying to think about making a movie while you're thinking about making something like this is like a whole other
you want
thing,
that thought already had happened.
Yeah, so it takes a lot of planning in advance, and like really a lot of forethought to make it. And like you said, it took Slinger how many years to get that down?
I think it took him around 5 years.
But you see, like,
to get that movie made, and it had a huge impact. And then going on from there, you had JD make his movie, which was a great window into the life of a nomadic glassblower, but also it was an independent film, limited budget and everything. And now you have Dan Collins on the verge of putting out, you have Project 33. Now you have the Michigan Glass Project, and he's got other things that he can announce coming out. But so there is a growing body of work, and of course, shout out to Torch TV, trying to make the culture, which have always been an important part of the whole thing, the culture, the craft, the community, making it all available, accessible to people.
Yeah, we just got to be careful that the right people make the movies, always and the right motivation is behind it. 'Cause I think there's definitely a lot of people motivated to just try to take something from the scene versus offer something. So I would like definitely for movies to offer us something. In the end, like. Do something positive for the scene,
Yeah, it'd be nice. It will be nice, just to see. I'd like to think that Banjo could possibly be getting, and yourself, and hell, myself, the respect that like Tony Hawk is getting, you know, and it's a little different. He's been selling skateboards to teenagers for decades, but I mean,
I don't think it's far-fetched at all.
You know what I'm saying?
It's like, if you put Banjo on the X Games, he's a Tony Hawk. You know?
I mean,
it's like,
I consider him like
kind
a
of
living,
platform, you know, for sure.
a living legend.
Tony Hawk or Banjo?
Well, both.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean,
Banjo's show at the real quick at the Giorgio Gaglianti Gallery, I felt like was a little moment for the scene in general, where it was just being acknowledged amongst other artists.
Yeah.
And also full circle. I mean, whatever. Not to divert too far, but man, I loved Alex Gray when I was like in high school, you know, and to see all of a sudden Alex Gray involved with one of our artists in a show together was pretty special.
Super cool, yeah.
And yet at the same time, my friend, maybe you're just a step, and let's not put it, how should I say, you're the SoCal version, you know? Yeah, we got Rhino and whatever, but I think as far as evolving the industry and stuff, you're not only somebody that's representing with a lot of talent and vision, but with a lot of heart and with a lot of desire to see the whole industry grow. I'd like to think of myself as someone that like likes to see the industry grow. Not the industry, the culture. You know what I'm saying? Of course, the industry. Let's get money, but like to see the craft, and not just glass flame working, but pipe making as a community, as a subculture, as a culture in general. I mean, hell, at one point I felt like I could name everybody in it. You know, the top 100 or whatever. Nowadays, it's not unusual for me to see work out there that I've never heard of the artist, and I'm like jaw dropping on some of the skills that are out there. And so it can be very humbling when I'm like, damn, dude, it took me over 10 years to even think of this as an industry, and then another 5 to start being like, how do I do this like a career? And even now I'm like, I think I'm almost an adult. Yeah. That's where I'm at. I think I'm almost an adult. I'm almost gray bearded and bald headed, but I'm pretty bald-headed, but to me, I actually don't feel too far off from the glass industry. I mean, I'm of a generation of an era of people that didn't even make it through school necessarily, and our whole approach to the pipe game was fuck the rat race. I do think now, evidence of this and everything, we've all matured and grown up, and it's realizing, we're the masters of our own destiny, and we can take this anywhere our imagination will let it go.
I think, just being a part of this project, like, and watching it evolve with everyone, it's definitely like made me realize that, like, it's just like all you gotta do is do it, really. Like, I always wanted to have an event or something for the glass scene in Southern California since I had gotten into it, known about all this stuff, and like I always saw it as like a flame off or something, because that was kind of like all there was, and like 2010 was just like that type of a thing when a bunch of glass blowers got together, they blew glass, and like everybody picked the winner, It's like that was kind of the mindset, and then like this past decade has been way different. Collaboration has like evolved, expanded, and like people sharing knowledge is way more, and I wouldn't say it's way more, but like there's a bigger pool now,
Bigger pool, and the internet. The tools are there to share the knowledge easier. I would say people are more eager to share knowledge, and part of it is, I just think, in the age of social media and the desire for hits and everything like that, there's people out there that have realized that they can draw an audience by sharing technique and everything, and there's a part of me that's like, oh, some of us had to come up and harder, and then I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up, man. It is what it is. That's the way the world is, and it's the evolution of the craft is going to happen a lot faster when people have more knowledge.
For sure.
Nothing. If you're hoarding a skill, then you're not trying hard enough to get new skills.
Yeah, I mean,
which I'm guilty of. Hey, you want to buy a pendant?
Yeah, for sure. For me, like being able to work with all those different guys, like, once I met Coil and Elbow and Joe and that whole crew, and then I linked up with Hops and the whole Philly guys, it was like there's this whole network of people who are willing to like work with you, and you guys all have your own little things that you do.
You know, I also credit those guys. They had a business ethic on top of their work ethic. So even like Slinger will tell you, like Sling and I, and we did our whole like artist Pacific Northwest. Like, it didn't occur to us that we could like save money or whatever. Like, dude, that Slinger was broke. You know what I'm saying? And then he teamed up with Hops. Moved out east and just saw those guys with their hustle in addition to their creativity, and he just switched his game around. And obviously, you know, could spend hours talking about about him. So, those guys on the East Coast, I think they really brought an important element to the game, which was, yo, dude, you're your own boss. It's not someone else. Like, all you guys on the West Coast that are like, I'm going to smoke bowls and I don't give a fuck because fuck work. You're your boss, dude. You're fucking yourself over.
No, I think that, dude, like, and you're 100% right, because I think at that time, the mindset of the West Coast was, I'm going to let someone else, like, sell my shit, distribute, and then the East Coasters came in and said, dude, we're taking over.
We're getting that money.
Yeah. We're going to sell our own shit and fucking represent our own shit and have the full control, you know, and then, dude, like, we just had to take notes, you know? Like,
and it's been a beautiful thing over the years, you know, in the beginning of the approach, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, before Jason was doing those, it was like skateboarding. Okay, what's every little fucking patterning technique I've ever learned, you know, inside out, wrap and rake, honeycomb, like, and you'd throw everything into your piece, and it was a mishmash of everything, but like the way you visioned it was like, no, I'm like a skateboarder doing a line, and I just did a fucking rail slide to a kickflip to a fucking, so it's all in there, you know what I'm saying? And then those guys came out, and all of a sudden they're like, my piece is entirely black, but with this amazing filicello. Maybe even Deppy actually might have been the first to do that. But and showed that like, oh, yo, there's a composition and aesthetic that can level us up where you don't look like you're just like haphazardly or even intentionally throwing every skill, every technique into something, because like in a weird way that's sort of insecure. Like, what do you have to do everything you know in every piece? That's a little bit that's like, that doesn't show a high level of maturity, let's just put it that way. And then you're like, all right, now I'm going to actually spend a lot of time on the focal point of the piece and then allow the rest of the negative space to frame it, you know? Man, I just sounded smart.
No, man, I think that's a great way to put it.
And now, you know, that's and so like you said, it's like those evolutions in the craft, but then also it's also Elbow just saying, yo, if someone can sell my piece for 30 grand, I'm getting that 30 grand. And if I can sell it for 30, I bet I can get 50.
Yeah. I mean, why?
With the right amount of work and it's not about skimping on quality or anything. It's got to have that unique artist statement going on.
Yeah.
But it was cool. It was. I mean, shit. Like I said, it took me a decade to even realize, wait, this can be a career. Like, this isn't just me doing something until I'm doing something else. This is it, you know. And then it took me another 10 years, you know, to get where I'm at now, which is it's a constant. I'll say this, for somebody that's been late to the game as far as the business maturity side of it, one of the things I've been really grateful for is being able to smoke a lot of marijuana for the last 20 plus years, not having the crack of a whip from some boss most of the time. Once in a while, I did get some jobs here and there, bartending, construction, when I felt like, pipe dreams, shit would happen. I felt a little insecure. I might have supplemented my income. But I realized, like, I've done so much thought about the soul, free will, the nature of consciousness and stuff, that I don't think that someone trapped in a 9-to-5 world would have had the ability to do that.
Totally.
And so, like, I'm grateful for the level of,
even if you're like here, dude, you're here. Just like you said, even if you're here 20 years later and your whatever financially is zero, you know, like you could say whatever you want to say, like wherever you are financially is like you made it here though, you know, without a fucking
ownership
real
of time,
job or like
healthy
signing that, like basically signing away fucking, you know,
and it's feast and famine. It's peaks and valleys, right? There's times when it's time for 5-star dining, and then there's times when it's gas station food, because that's what's closest and most convenient, and that's what's open, you know, whatever. I actually think that one of the other valuable lessons that I've learned in life, but I think glass teaches this also, is immensely, I think glass teaches this, is the shittiest moments are teaching you the most. Like when that piece broke, if you're just walking away pissed and not trying to figure out why it broke, then you're wasting your life. You're wasting your time with that. When shit goes wrong in life, that's when the lessons are there, full fury to learn, right? And glass is going to be that way. Glass is going to show you where you're at, man. Are you focusing on what you're doing, or is your brain all over the place? Like, because your piece is going to show you when it's all said and done. Another thing I think is amazing with glass is just how you can garage just something and be in this perfect high with it, and you saw it. It was perfect. And then the next day, because you've had that cool down, just like the piece, and now maybe it's not quite as perfect. And to me, it's just the power of our brains and how much our reality is manifested inside of our mind. You know, in that moment, it's a certain thing. In a later moment, maybe it's a little bit of a different thing. It's all vibration and light and shit that's going into our brains, that our mind is making this interpretation of reality. And like I say, I feel like glass is played. The glass, it's the pipe game. I mean, it's like it started off where, I don't know about you, but it's like you felt like you couldn't tell your parents in the beginning. You're like, oh, I'm blowing glass, but you know, it wasn't about weed. And now we're at the point where like weed and glass are not even taboo. It's like, you know, all my family members love hitting me up and being like, oh, did you see that thing on CNN about cannabis or whatever, you know? and so it's a trip. It's a trip to go from going into a fucking bead shop in Seattle in 1998 and 99 and being like, click, or 2000, being like my very first face marbles and just like not interested. It's like, dude, I didn't even have the case open for 30 seconds. And 20 years later, it's like, you know, not only does it sell for a decent amount of money, but it's sort of like your old school beads and shit are the things that I put on around my centerpiece. You know what I mean? And like, where was your vision with that 20 years ago, people? Like, you had the store and you were like, meh. So it's really cool. It's really cool being part of something at such an early point and seeing it evolve. I'm sure you feel the same way, where like you can see the impact that you've had on the industry. You can see how you've inspired the artists that have been part of this to want to be part of bigger things. Like, I feel like it does feel like climbing a mountain when I'm to den. And my role is definitely nowhere near as big as yours. But like, when sometimes after 20 years of glass blowing, you allow your brain to put it into the this is my job place as opposed to this is my passion place. Things like this just firmly put it back into the this is my passion place. Like, this is the only negative is I almost realize I crash a little bit. The piece is done, and like 2 or 3 days later, I'm kind of just in a sort of melancholy mood. You know what I mean? I have to like, and I realize like, man, I was really, really, really stoked for like a solid multiple weeks while that was happening. And it's not that I got depressed. It's just you can't maintain that stoke forever. So so yeah, man, appreciate you allowing me to talk to you about everything, about yourself, about all of this. It gets me excited being part of this industry. It reminds me it's not just a job, it's a lifestyle, it's a passion. Makes me want to push myself a lot harder, figure out ways I can contribute in a more meaningful way to the industry, to these projects, and to my own life.
Yeah, man. And like, I would like to say, like, you know, as far as the Molten Art Classic, you know, what it's turned into, it's been like super special to like be part of, you know, and everyone's been a part of what it's turned into. But, you know, for us, it's like, you know, we just want to inspire people to go out and like do, you know, it's like, for me, it's like, I've realized now that like, I didn't have to wait for like somebody to like put on an event for us to like go do this. Like, we could just do it, you know? So it's like, anybody, like, I know there's already crews of people who are starting to like work together more, but it's like, you know, it'd be awesome to see more people, like Subliminal killing it, you know, and like I think he's only been blowing glass for like not even 10 years, you know, and I'm like, dude, like what the fuck?
And all I gotta say is we paved the way for you. We paved the way.
But the learning curve, man, has gotten so much
It is.
faster.
It's impressive, dude. It's insane. It's impressive.
So yeah, I can imagine him in another 10 years, you know, like it's like.
And there'll be
it's
somebody
gonna be
that's
awesome,
not
you
even
know?
blowing glass right now
But
that
that's-
will be like, holy shit,
yeah.
10 years ago.
Hopefully, you know, we just like could crack the door open a little bit on these pieces being sold more and more, you know, because
Yeah.
that would be awesome.
I think.
I think start making them because, you know, it's right now the problem is like you said, like people can go down to the art gallery in Laguna Beach and see a soft glass piece that's 4 feet tall and only $5,000 or something, you know, and then they look at our pieces and we're like, yeah, it's 10 times or 20 times
Yeah.
more that because of like it's that much more work. You
Yeah.
know, like we didn't make this in one day, start to finish.
And like that $5,000 piece, is as cool as it is in that Laguna gallery, there's probably many of those. You know, that artist is probably, that's their thing. They make a lot of them. And not to take anything away from it, it's still a rad piece. This is the only one of these,
But
you know?
there's just a disconnection still between like someone who's willing to purchase that, you know, people who are buying those pieces and looking at ours and can't understand why it is the price it is, you know, is like that's kind of my mission in the future is like trying to hopefully bridge that.
You know, there's a
gap,
canvas
you know?
out there that's 1 or 2 colors that's going for $1 million. You know, it's all relative to the collectors,
Yeah, I mean,
relative to, you know.
Once the match is lit, you know, once it gets to the right, you know, once it gets seen by the right person.
It seems like there will
group.
probably be some sort of surge of money into the industry once cannabis is legal on a national level. I mean, it would make sense for any brand, cannabis brand, to want to use the culture to promote itself. And like I said, I mean, there's something uniquely, I don't want to say American because it's become international, but as far as that original American dream of self-reliability, sort of like going against the grain and making it out on your own according to your own rules. I just feel like the pipe industry, the contemporary pipe movement really exemplifies that. And
totally, and yeah, it's like just move in the future. Like every business is gonna try and take advantage of the cannabis scene. You know, like they're all gonna switch over to fucking pro weed. So it's like, cool, man, build your weed hotel and like put this in the
That's what I'm saying, and that's what I'm saying. Or like. Or just high-end, that hotel with a high-end dispensary. I mean, who knows? The laws are so far behind where they need to be right now as far as not just legalization, but open consumption and public gatherings and all that there's a little ways to go. But it seems like the dominoes should just fall on that one quickly. I mean, right now, it's not as promising when you got Grandpa A and Grandpa B, you know, fucking running for president, and neither one of them has really come out in favor of cannabis. You know, I'm not trying to get too political. My views are well enough known if you know me, but
we're close.
But having said that, if either one of them tried to, well, we won't go there. We'll go back to positive things. So, well, right on, dude. Appreciate you. I think we just talked for a couple hours, which is really rad. We were able to get into. Well, actually, wait. So now you're blowing glass on it just finally. Are you actually using the Delta Mag or?
I am on the Delta Mag now. Yeah.
That's your like daily driver.
Yeah, I've been on the Mag or GTT ever since I switched. I got the Mag probably 5 years ago. It's got compressed air into it, which I use sometimes, but for the most part, yeah, that's my torch. I used the Herbie for a little while when I was in Germany, and I considered switching when I got back here, but then like got back on my GTT and I was like, well.
It's hard for me to imagine giving up the GTT for a Herbie. Yeah. I could understand complementing it.
Yeah, I
but
think
they're
so.
two different flames, man.
It's hard to, it's like, there's definitely a learning curve to getting used to working it versus a GTT. The controls are so different. But
and I mean, every Herbie's going to be a little different. You can dial it in yourself.
Arguably, like, much better flame environment for working Boro.
Yeah, I mean, to oversimplify, I think Herbies do well with thinner glass. So if you're trying to do like disc flips with like hair thin stringers, if you're working probably fumes, and if you're trying to do classic like Venetian shaping where things are thin wall and everything, then your Herbies have got a nice big soft, like gentle heat base, whereas the GTT is just fucking we're going to get to the core. So like if you're a marble maker, or if you do a lot of solid sculpture, or really just in general with boro, certain thicker colors, I think that while you got to make sure you're not boiling anything or being too aggressive, it's just, I mean, shit, when I had a Herbie for 6 years, and when I switched over to the Mirage and I was a marble maker, I was like, holy fuck, dude.
Moving this shit.
I just fucking rounded that thing out in like half the time it normally takes, you know. Yeah,
but at the same time, it's like when you're working hollow shit, it can easily like overheat it.
Yeah. It's so direct, you know. It's so direct.
I think it's, you know, I think it's a very hard torch for beginners to learn on, just because it can overheat your shit so easy.
Yeah.
So, you know, Carlisle definitely, even a Herbie.
I generally have a like push them in the deep end in the beginning kind of mentality of like it'll suck for in the beginning, but it'll force you to get to its fucking.
It is, yeah. It's
some
true,
people
you know,
quit,
like,
you know. Some people, I wouldn't say get a Delta Mag right off the bat, but you know,
I don't know,
maybe
like,
a Phantom.
Just materials, tools, everything involved, technique, you know. So maybe jumping in, you know, maybe that's what fucking Subliminal did. And now he's just crushing.
I mean, I think Scott, at least in the beginning, had resources to get himself good equipment, and so he was like, had that. I think he had an Arnold like 1990.
Deppy?
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure he was on a GTT working on. I mean, you had to work those crayons.
I don't think he got like a Delta or GTT until years later.
Really?
I mean, I could be wrong. He probably had all the tools
and
the toys as fast as you could get them.
Because like the really only other comparison I had was like Marcel and Jason working those bright colors early on, but they were on the DTT.
Was Marcel? I think Marcel was on a Herbie.
Was he?
I think he's been on Herbie the whole time, and I think eventually he also got a Delta Mag. No, I think he's got both.
Maybe he was just on one.
Wait, well, you took the class with the,
Maybe he was just working because he was doing all this big prep. That was it.
That might be it.
So he might have just been on that.
He loves the shop and the stuff and the equipment as much as he loves making it.
Yeah.
So he was always
definitely a tool
well
guy.
equipped.
He had some cool stuff.
Right on, dude. Well,
Sick.
Thanks for coming in to your studio.